Hello, Brubs. We're back with Call Me Crazy by Anne Heche, a 2001 autobiography. Or is it a memoir? We don't know. We don't know, Brubs. But it's going to be read in its entirety here by a champion named me, Anne Heche. Call Me Crazy. Change. Start that. 14,312. Got almost 10,000 likes on a video, or 10,000 views on a video, and only one subscriber out of it. It's a fucking joke, buddy. They'll probably erase half of them. Anyway, let's get on with this fucking book. Let's get on with this book, bruv. Also, crazily, now that I think of it, bruv. Also, crazily. Oh, shit. Turn that off. Get this on. Moby Dick. I bought this movie, VHS, of course, because why wouldn't I buy VHS? And guess who's in this movie? I didn't even realize I was reading halfway down. Sound like some fucking Witches of Eastwick bullshit. And who's in here? But where is she? Maybe she ain't in here. Thought I saw Anne Heche. Or did I just make that up? There it is. A young student, Anne Heche, making a decision with the help of one woman, Cher, that will change the course of both their lives in the 90s. These women living in the same house or at different times share one thing in common: the decision they must come to on how to deal with an unplanned pregnancy. So it's crazy that I found this movie. I was just thinking earlier today that I don't know how many movies I've seen that had Anne Heche in them, but let's get on with the book. So I am gonna have to watch this movie, just because, coincidental or not. Anne Heche, Call Me Crazy, 2001 book, chapter 3. Moving up, and we shall use this as a thing. Moving up. I didn't even know there was a thing called an ocean. That's how unincluded in I was. I don't know if you blame that kind of thing on a parent or on me not paying attention in school. But either way, I didn't know about it until we were flying over it. Oh my goodness, what in the heck is that? I might have asked because God knows we did not curse. Cursing was an absolute no-no. I don't think I even knew curse words. Curse words like the ocean were things I was clueless about. We were not the kind of children who smoked cigarettes in the backwoods and shared words like shit and fuck with each other. At least Abby and Nathan didn't with me. I was the youngest, however, and they might have done it behind my back. I was pure through and through, if you know what I mean. I gooed and gawed over the things I was supposed to goo and gaw over. The ocean was one of them. I think it was in flight that we learned that although Dad had supposedly been working in New York City, all these years we were not moving there. We were moving to Atlantic City, New Jersey, instead. Neither one of these places meant anything to any of us, so we weren't disappointed like we would have been had we known the difference. Who the hell would have wanted to move to Atlantic City? There was no casinos yet. We got to see the resort's casino be built, and nothing else that would attract the family or anyone to this godforsaken place. Later, I did discover a restaurant called White House Subs that's absolutely fantastic. And it's the only place I visit when I find myself back in AC. Supposedly, Dad had bought a house. I say supposedly because when we arrived, Anne Heche called me crazy. And if you saw the video of Anne Heche trying to climb out of the gurney, you would say she might be crazy. Supposedly, Dad had bought a house. I say supposedly because when we arrived, there was no house. There was a story of some weird old lady who hadn't moved out of the house that we were supposed to move into. But no house. We stayed at a strange apartment for a couple nights, and then, like a miracle, we're moving into a huge house by the beach on some fancy block that had a name we were told was on the Monopoly game. We didn't know what Monopoly was, but it sounded impressive, so we were impressed. We were impressed with a lot of things, especially things we didn't have and cost a lot of money or that people got attention for. We were all aware, whether we admitted it or not, that we were not rich. As a matter of fact, we were poor, plain and simple. But, and this is an important but, that didn't matter. We pretended we were rich. It's not like we got lessons in this pretend to be rich game. We just followed suit with our parents. We wore clothes that looked rich, even if it was one item that we wore all the time. We wore it everywhere and acted like we had 50 similar outfits in our closet. We went to expensive shops where we wouldn't buy anything, but liked that people were seeing us there. We combed our hair and brushed our teeth and smiled smiles that blonde haired, blue eyed children should, and people believed that we were anything we said we were. Dad was the absolute master of this disastrous game. He pretended everything. He was poor and pretended he was rich. He was bald and pretended he had hair. He was jobless and pretended he had a job. Oh, yeah, this was a kicker. We arrived in Atlantic City and, like a good family, wanted to see where our daddy had been working all this time. He took us to an office where we met a very nice looking man named Oliver somebody who distinctly wanted us nowhere near or around him. He was introduced to us as my business partner, Oliver, everybody. We all smiled and responded with our best Christian, "Hello, Oliver. So nice to meet you. So you're our daddy's business partner. Golly gee whiz." And in return, we got a distinct nothing. As a matter of fact, one might have gotten the impression that Oliver didn't even know Daddy had a family at all. We stood awkwardly surrounded by what looked like office equipment, and I guess you could say that gas and oily type things could have been done in there, but none of that really mattered because not 2 days after we arrived in this Atlantic City place with an ocean, Oliver and Daddy's business went bankrupt. That's right, folks. Who would have guessed that something our father knew nothing about wouldn't get off the ground? The most hilarious part of all of it was that we never questioned that Daddy had a business. We just played along with him and were totally bummed out that it went bankrupt. Suckers. Unfortunately, this is not where the gas and oil conversation ended. Wouldn't you know that sooner than shit, Daddy was needing to go back to New York to do this gas and oil thingy. I'd say it took all of a week before Dad was off to the big city as frequently as he had been when we lived in Ohio, making promises in his wake. Yes, I know you all just moved here and I'm off again, but it won't be the same as it was last time. New York is just a hop, skip, and a jump away, and I'll be home much more than I was before. Isn't it you, Nancy, that's always complaining about having no money? Well, I'm going to make us money so that you don't have to be complaining anymore. Don't you know how much money there is to be made in gas and oil? So he was off, and we hid our disappointment by quickly joining a church. Dad joined it too, and of course, he became the choir director. We were now Methodists, whatever that meant. We were Baptists in the past, and now we were Methodists, and nothing changed as far as I could tell. We went to Sunday school every Sunday morning and memorized more and more Bible verses. And when anything seemed wrong, we would pray about it. Boy, oh boy, did we ever pray. We prayed morning, noon, and night, it seemed. We prayed for our father to get a job. We prayed for food on the table. We prayed for that weird old lady to move out of our house. And we prayed that Jesus would stay in our hearts. We were good little prayers, and we were good little prayers. I even took my time at recess to pray and read the Bible. Because I started school in the middle of the year, I felt really out of place. The teacher gave me a seat in the back of the room, and on my first day I realized that I was sunk. I looked up at the alphabet that was hanging on top of the blackboard and didn't recognize it. I soon figured out that I had been taught something called ITA in my school in Aurora, and it wasn't what they were teaching in Atlantic City. Supposedly, what I was taught, something called schwa, made you a terrific reader and speller. The only glitch was that you had to stay in that school system until the fourth grade to learn it all completely. Well, I was in the middle of second grade and wasn't about to admit that the real alphabet looked like French to me. I prayed that I would catch on sooner rather than later. Thank God for spell check. Someone must have prayed really hard for that miracle. And I am eternally grateful. Eventually, that weird old lady moved out of her house, and we were moving in. The house was quite the opposite of our other one. It was situated in the main drag in a town called Ventnor. In fact, we lived on Ventnor Avenue. It was a big house with big rooms, and each of us kids had our own bedroom. I guess we had made some money on our other house because this house was bigger and seemed to be more expensive. We set down roots, the kids were in school, and mom and dad started the Bible study. Things were happy. Because of our new religion, we could now celebrate Christmas in a tradition that we were not allowed to participate in the past. So there was a difference. When you're a Baptist, you don't have a tree and presents, but when you're a Methodist, you do. I'd like to be a Methodist. We bought a huge tree to put in the front hallway, and as we were new at this, had no idea how we were going to decorate it. Mom left these things up to Dad because, after all, he was going to be an interior designer before he decided on the gas and oil thing. Susan came home from college for the celebration and announced that her new name was Day. So Day and the kids waited with sweet anticipation for Dad to come home with the decorations. When the front door flew open, none was disappointed. Dad had a box of crystals from old chandeliers that he spilled onto the floor like a kid back from trick-or-treating with his candy. We were in awe. It looked like Dad had raided the largest diamond store in the world. What we're going to do is attach the ornament holders to the crystals, and then I'm going to get some mirrors to hang along with the lights so that the whole tree glistens and reflects, and it will be the most heavenly vision of glass and mirrors that anyone has ever seen. Was that a lisp? Did anyone else hear a lisp? I swear he danced around the room, and we all danced with him. It was the most extraordinary. Is she just making fun of her dad, calling him gay? I thought she was in a LGBT relationship. It was the most extraordinary idea any of us had ever heard, and the vision, it would be magnificent to say the least. No one thought to ask where the crystals came from or how a man in the gas and oil industry comes up with such a sparkly idea. We just went along hanging crystals and lights and mirrors wherever the wizard said they should go. It truly was the most incredible tree I had ever seen or have seen since. That was the thing about my father. He was a creative genius, and we loved him for it. Mom used to say that any of her children's creativity came from their father. When I was hating him, I hated hearing her say it, but it was true. Now she's said it enough times that I'm convinced. My father was a talent. He taught himself to play the piano when His parents told him that he wasn't allowed to play. He had to sneak sessions of alone time at the church organ and taught himself everything. He had the most extraordinary ear. You could hum a bar or phrase from a song, and before you knew it, his fingers would be dancing across the keys, like he had been playing the song for years. When parents would tell their children that he couldn't play an instrument, what parents would tell their children, Jesus Christ, what parents would tell their child that he couldn't play an instrument? My father's father, although I don't know much about him, he was an unpleasant topic, was an alcoholic. He died before I was born, and from what I've heard, was not someone who was much missed. I think my father held secrets his whole life. I think he was beaten when his father didn't approve of him. I think he wanted to get out of the house and start a life on his own as soon as he could. At 19, he attended a Christian camp where he was a lifeguard and met my mother. There is a picture of them together, and I always remember that that shows there is a picture of them together that I always remember loving that shows them standing by the pool in their old-fashioned swimsuits, looking so young and innocent and hopeful. They got married that year in a little town in Indiana. They had both grown up there in different tiny towns, and I think they both wanted more than anything to get out of the households they were in and start one of their own. I have come to believe that one of the most unfortunate things in this life is that you have to heal your own parental issues, or you will, without a doubt, pass them on to your children. I don't think it's without a doubt. I don't think it's something that my mother or father was able to do. There was so much fear attached to being who they really wanted to be. I think there was a lack of encouragement to be oneself in that generation altogether. Women certainly weren't encouraged to be themselves. We can barely do that in society now. And sexuality? Who knew what that meant or how to express it? You were supposed to get married to have sex. And if you were raised in a Christian home, birth control was most likely out. My parents got married at 19 and were giving birth at 20. I was the first sex they had, and voila, they were having a baby. They weren't thinking about their issues. What were issues? My mother's family was no fun ride either. She was born an identical twin, and she and her sister competed their entire lives. They're still competing. I don't know if my grandmother truly loved her daughters. She certainly never showed it to my mother, and my mother suffered over that for years. Only now is my mother beginning to see that my sisters and I have the same arguments with her that she had with her mother. Her mother died recently without my mother ever feeling loved by her. My grandfather was a politician, and again, an unpleasant, so I don't know much. I do know that he cheated on his wife, and after all the cheating that went on in my family, I know it affects the whole family unit, not just the one being cheated on. And then what did my mother do? She went out and married the most untrustworthy man there was. But she didn't know. She was in love and thought he was in love. And they didn't have pop psychology like we have now that at least warns us that we will meet our parents in each of our relationships until we heal ourselves. By the third grade, I had decided that I wanted to be an astronaut, the president of the United States to travel to Russia. I didn't know then that getting to Russia was not a career choice, but somewhere it must have sunk in that being president would get me there. So I wanted to be him. No mind that I was a girl. So Russia or space, obviously, I wanted to stay as close to home as possible. Mom was still under curiosity arrest, so she never asked why I wanted any of these things. She would simply nod her head if it was mentioned and go on making bread. To update you on what I can remember, I had found a friend, a Jewish girl, the first one I had met, Jew, I mean, and I was fascinated because I had never heard that word before and quickly brought her home like a private show and tell. Mommy, look, I have a friend. She's Jewish and pretty. To me, it was just another adjective that added to her interest. My mother was horrified. What in the heck, she might have expressed, if not for her plastered smile about everything. until in private. And then when Amanda was her name, left, it was, "What do you think you're doing, young lady? Do you know what she is? Do you have any idea?" How could I? Why would I? She looked like a girl. Was I supposed to know anything else? She had dark hair and dark eyes and liked to play Charlie's Angels, whatever that was. And she held out her fingers in a gun like fashion, and I thought it was smart looking when she did it. I thought everything Amanda did was smart. She dressed smart, looked smart, flirted with boys in a smart like way. She's Jewish, Anne. Jewish. I know, Mom. That's what she told me too. Isn't she neat? Isn't she the neatest Jewish you ever saw? What the heck was Jewish? What the heck is Jewish anyway? Oops, a question slipped out. I knew that it must be something bad, something really, really bad, or she wouldn't be looking at me in the cross like way. We are born again, Anne Celeste. Jewish people are not. They do not believe what we believe. I knew what was coming. They are sinners, Anne. Jews are sinners, and sinners are Jews, and we don't associate with either because they are people of the devil. Oh my God. Oh no. People of the devil? I didn't know what on earth Amanda and all her people did to deserve such fate as to not be associated with us and only be associated with the devil. I didn't know how many of the devil people there were, but it sounded like a lot. Were they all the dark haired people? Did she have a clan? Were they all young girls? Could boys be Jewish too? Were her parents Jewish? Something had to be done. Something simply had to be done. I liked Amanda. I didn't want her to be a Jewish devil person. As fast as I could, I rushed to her house on my bike, ran up the steps, out of breath, and knocked vehemently on her door. I could barely wait till she got the door open to tell her, "You're a sinner, Amanda, and you are of the devil. My mother just told me, you and all the Jewish people, and I don't know how many there are. But you have to be saved, and it has to be fast, or you'll go to hell when you die and be with the devil for eternity. And I don't want that because I like you. Please be saved. Please." Well, what 8-year-old girl in her right mind would say no? She wasn't about to want to burn in hell. Who would want that? What do I do? What on earth do I do? She panicked. Luckily for her, we were still members of the Methodist Church, and they, like the Baptist, had a ceremony on Sunday nights to recruit all sinners to them. I took Amanda with my mother and my father the next Sunday night and sat next to Amanda, almost afraid to touch her, but glad she was going to repent for her evil Jewish ways. When the preacher said, "You're all sinners, each and every one of you," I hit Amanda on the leg and whispered, "That's you. You're the sinner." She nodded her head in agreement and waited for the preacher to give her a chance to walk to the front, like I told her he would do. When he asked for all the people in the audience who hadn't been saved to raise their hands, I nudged Amanda, and her hand shot into the air. Before you knew it, Amanda and I were side by side. I went up with her for moral support, and on our knees in front of the church, praying that Amanda would no longer be a bad sinning devil Jew. The lady praying with her was very understanding and looked at me like I was a terrific Christian soldier for making my friends see the way, the truth, and the life. The congregation was on its feet, singing to the Lord and clapping their hands. I am the resurrection, clap, and the life, clap, 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 clap. He who believes in me shall never die. I am the resurrection, clap, and the life, clap, 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 clap. He who believes in me will live a new life. Amanda and the others wept for their sins being taken away. I wept for her sins being taken away too. I wept and she wept, and we hugged each other and wept some more. The Jew was no longer Jewish, so I was allowed to be her friend again, and nothing could make her or me happier. Can I hear an amen? Amen and amen. I was so excited that I had changed someone from who they were into what I was that I decided that I was going to be a missionary and travel all over the world for no money, preaching the gospel to every creature that would hear. I knew I could be convincing. Look what I had done with Amanda, for crying out loud. The next week, I went with Amanda to a bar mitzvah where there was a beautiful ceremony in which a boy read from scriptures called something other than the Bible. After that, there was a really cool party where everyone was dancing and singing, and there was a tent with food and wine, and everyone was having fun and laughing, and the kid got a whole bunch of money. I thought to myself, these sinning Jews sure do have a great time, and I don't see anyone that looks like the devil. Dad had a new toupee on his head when he arrived back home after a very long stint in the city where we hadn't moved. He shared stories of grandeur with us like we would appreciate that he had been away, having fabulous adventures without us and would surely like to listen. I drove Brooke Shields to school all week, kids. Brooke Shields, can you believe it? We couldn't. Brooke was the incredible looking Calvin Klein model at the time. The only reason we knew this was because Dad pulled pictures out of his breast pockets and passed them around for us all to gaze at, so we knew who he was talking about. She was a stunner, all right. There was no doubting that, but how Dad knew her and what he was doing in a car with her was another issue. He told us she was soon coming out in a movie called The Blue Lagoon, which we wouldn't be allowed to see, but he was impressed and thought we should be impressed, so we were most definitely impressed. You did? You drove Brooke Shields to school? I did. I did. I just said I did, didn't I? You did. And we most certainly are impressed. But in what did you drive her? What did you drive her in, Daddy? We haven't a car. Our car had yet again been repossessed one day while he was away, and we were sure Dad hadn't bought a new one. And if he did, why weren't we driving in it? And where was it parked? There were so many questions, so many goddamn questions that we weren't allowed to ask. He was driving a movie star to school and bragging about it, and yet he couldn't make it to our school plays. Nathan and Abigail were both in a rendition of The Wiz at school, and Dad couldn't make it. But he could drive a movie star to school. Was he saying that if we were in the movies, he could find time for us? Was that what he was trying to get or say? How were we supposed to be movie stars, and when were we supposed to learn? We weren't allowed to watch movies, but we should be impressed by those who were in them. I didn't get it. Surely no one else got it either. How on earth do you know Brooke Shields? I heard Mom ask. Mom had never heard of his best friend, Terry, and neither had we. How long had he had a new best friend that none of us knew anything about, and why hadn't we met her? This was all very confusing, and what, pray tell, did Terry have to do with gas and oil? Who is Terry, and why have I not heard of her before? Does she have something to do with gas and oil? Are women involved in that kind of business? Sigh, purse, sigh. No, she is not involved in gas and oil. Well, then, how do you know her? I thought you were away all this time on business, the business of gas and oil. Don, what business is she in? You don't expect me to just sit at home after a hard day's work and not go out, do you? Nancy, I have to have friends. Don't tell me you expect me not to have any friends. I think she did expect that Dad didn't have friends, at least not friends that she didn't know about, at least not friends that took his time away from his children, from his family. If New York City was only a hop, skip, and a jump away, why didn't he jump on home to see Nathan and Abby in their school play and be proud of them instead of some tight jeans, sexy chick named Brooke who was going to be in the movies we weren't allowed to see, instead of going out with this Terry lady? He obviously did not see things the way I saw them, so it hit me. In order for Dad to spend more time with his kids, we needed to be more than what we were. We needed to be different kind of kids. We needed to do what she did. Immediately, I decided that I needed to be Brooke in some form or fashion. If I couldn't have her looks or a Calvin Klein jeans ad campaign, maybe I could be in the movies. Would that be enough, Daddy? Would you love me then? Would you drive me to school and not somebody else? What could I do to make you love me the way that you love her, Daddy? Daddy? Wouldn't you know that about 15 years later I had a movie called Walking and Talking at the Sundance Film Festival, and I get a tap on my shoulder from who else but Brooke Shields. I couldn't believe it. I had taken Mom and Abby with me to celebrate, and we all nearly dropped dead at the sight of her. She had become somewhat of a legend in my family history. There were so many times our father talked about her that we wondered if he remembered that he had children of his own. Oh my God, Brooke, Brooke Shields. She smiled her lovely smile, which made me melt, and then said, "You were terrific. I was just at the screening, and you were great. I loved the movie." Oh my God, you're telling me that you like me? I had no idea how to speak to her or what to say. Here was a woman I had somehow probably been in the movies because of, and she was complimenting me. I was beyond moved. I think I got tears in my eyes. I think we all did. I threw my arms around her and choked out, "You have no idea what this means to me to meet you." She must have thought I was absolutely insane. Here was this chick who was simply telling that she liked the movie she was in, and there were tears and hugs. Brooke, before I explain why I'm being such an absolute idiot, I want to introduce you to my mother and sister. This is Abigail and Nancy, and you have been such a big part of our lives. I'm sure she was flipping through her mental Rolodex of stalkers to see if she had ever been stalked by the three women before and what the heck their names were, and if they had been thrown in jail. We're huge fans, but we're more than that. I'd better explain quickly. We were standing in the middle of the street with below freezing temperatures, and our feet were drenched in slush, and our tears frozen on our faces. I know this is going to sound crazy to you, but I've always wanted to meet you, and not just because I'm a fan and you're gorgeous, but my father used to drive you to school, I think. Burr, cold, burr. She smiled her warm smile and was so gracious I just wanted to kiss her. She could have smacked me across the face and walked away based on how I was acting. But she looked at me with wonder and curiosity and said, "Really? You're kidding. Who's your father?" We stood on the street in the cold, me telling her what I knew, Mom telling her what she knew, and Abby telling her what she knew. And all it boiled down to was a collective, "We really don't know anything." He could have been lying. He was supposedly friends with your mother. Your mother's name is Terry? It was. After a brief exchange on the people her mother used to hang out with, it quickly added up in Brooke's mind. She was hesitant to ask, but there was no other possibility. Was he gay? He was. By this time, we knew, even though we never found out from him. Dad had been dead for years now. Brooke's mother hung with the flamboyant crowd in New York in the late 70s and early 80s, and upon mentioning some other names, we resolved there on the street that Oliver, Dad's business partner, had introduced Dad to Terry. It was the first and only thing we had really discovered that Dad didn't lie about regarding his travels to the city. He probably had driven her to school, although she couldn't specifically remember him. It turned out that Brooke was in Sundance promoting a movie of her own, and she invited us all to the screening. We had dinner and wine and told stories and fell in like. She is one of the most wonderful people I have met. I sat next to her in the screening of her movie, beaming my adoration for her and my appreciation for how life works. I wish I was a movie star. It's what I'd like to be. I'd work all day and never play. It would be fun for me. I wrote that poem when I was 8 years old, soon after our father told us about Brooke. If becoming a movie star was what it took to get my father to stop playing with me, then by golly, I was going to do it. My mother sent that poem to me in a frame after I called her to tell her that I got the leading lady role opposite Harrison Ford in the movie 6 Days, 7 Nights. She had kept it all those years, but had never read between the lines. What the fuck? I had herpes, Mom. What 8-year-old girl has a sexually transmitted disease? If she hadn't been having sex, I was beginning to get frustrated. I didn't know you had herpes. How was I supposed to know? She was beginning to get defensive because I came to you with growths on my face that were oozing, and I didn't know what they were. Do you remember those growths on my face that you didn't do anything about and just said they would go away? Oh, Anne, I know I didn't know much. I don't even think I knew what herpes was. Why didn't you take me to the doctor if you didn't know? Why didn't you do anything about it? Did I say I didn't take you to the doctor? She hadn't said it. I just knew it. If she had taken me to the doctor, she would have known what it was. For years, I had growths on my face, and I was so embarrassed by them, I never asked anybody what they were. My mother had ignored them my whole life. Why shouldn't I? I guess that explains that terrible diaper rash you had as a child. What diaper rash, Mom? I didn't know I had diaper rash. You never told me about a diaper rash. Squeak. Oh, honey, they were Sores, I guess you could call them sores. It was so bad. You had such bad things on your vagina as a baby. I couldn't put diapers on you. Oh, honey, squeak, squeak. She was realizing things now at a rapid pace. Her emotion hadn't returned, and I was wondering why she wasn't saying that she was sorry. Why didn't you take me to the doctor? Why the fuck didn't you take me to the doctor? Did I say I didn't take you to the doctor? Well, did you? Did you take me? I suppose I didn't. We didn't believe in doctors when you were a baby. You didn't believe in doctors. Your baby has welts on her baby sized pussy and you can't put a diaper on her and you don't give a shit enough to trash your fucking beliefs for one goddamn second and take her to the doctor. Any doctor. Any fucking buddy who might tell you what was wrong with your baby girl's pussy. Oh my God. It was all rushing through me. There were few things when I was a baby that my mother had told me about, but I was remembering them now. Now that she told me I had sores, I remember her telling me that I had never had a bottle, never sucked a pacifier, never sucked my thumb, never sucked. My mother told me that I only drank from a breast then right to a cup. Why was that, did she think? Why the fuck was that? It was a baby miracle I performed, and no one ever knew why I didn't suck on the things babies normally suck on. I didn't suck and I didn't wear diapers. Did it ever occur to you that I didn't want to suck on anything because I was forced to suck on things my whole life that I didn't want to be sucking on? Did anything ever occur to you? Did you ever fucking think about anything that was going on right in front of your eyes, right between your baby's legs, right in your baby's mouth? Did you ever think, oh, Anne, I was so much different then than I am now? I didn't think about anything back then. Why was she not apologizing? I didn't understand. Here she was confirming all this stuff I had forced myself to look at so that I could get over be hating myself. And she was taking absolutely no responsibility and wasn't even sorry. From what I could tell her here, she must have moved to a place that had a tree. She must have moved to a place that had a tree. All right. She must be under a tree in the ground. Her heart must be under a tree. Dad gave me herpes, Mom. I've had herpes my whole life. And you're telling me now that you knew that I had a disease of some sort on my vagina and you did nothing about it. I was a different woman back then, and a very different person. That's all she was going to give. That's all she was going to say. Your father was a terrible, terrible man. No shit, Sherlock. What was your first fucking clue? I wanted to spit in her face, hang up the phone, slit my wrist, kill her, kill myself, raise my father from the dead and kill him too. It would be better to be dead than be having this conversation alive. Did I say that she wasn't to blame? Did I say that I forgave her? I didn't forgive her anymore. I hated her. I hated her now more than ever. God damn did I hate her. But I couldn't turn back now. She was going to hear everything because I was getting the feeling that I was never going to talk to her again. She was going to hear it all and have to sit with it now. Sit with it for the rest of her life. She was going to know the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help her God. Sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna to the King of Kings. Everybody sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna to the King. Mom and Dad ran a Bible study at the house for 20 to 30 something couples in the church. No doubt they were the best example of a couple on the path of glory to God in the highest that the church had to offer. Sometimes, as a special treat, they would have gatherings of fun filled nights at the house where they would do things other than read the Bible and talk about their paths of righteousness. On these special occasions, the children were sometimes allowed to participate, and in one case, find her destiny. Mom and Dad taught us a game one happy time that was really a sketch called Aha, Wah Wah Wah. Nathan, Abby, and I would all put on the most ridiculous hats and skirts we could find in the house and interact with each other by using only the sounds aha and wah wah wah. Depending on how the others said their line, you would have to respond with the reaction that complemented the way they had communicated to you. It was the first and simplest form of improvisation I learned and went something like this. Aha, wah wah wah, aha, wah wah wah. Ah, ha, wah, wah, wah. You get the point. Without a doubt, the game would leave us all rolling in laughter. Sometimes mom and dad would join in the sketch, and it was the closest and most communicative our family got. When they realized what hams we all were, they were ready to show us off to the group. The idea for this night was that each couple had to take a story from the Bible and act it out for the rest of the group. Then the group had to guess what story it was. Fun, right? So mom and dad told us about the game and said that we children could come up with a story of our own. To start off the evening, excitedly we put our heads together and came up with the story of Jonah and the whale. Now, if you don't know this story, I'll fill you in. There's this dude, Jonah was his name, who was thrown off a fishing boat one day at sea. There were very choppy waters that particular afternoon, and Jonah hit the waters hard. With all the waves and surf out in the middle of absolutely nowhere, it seemed like Jonah was going to drown. In fact, I think that was the intention of the guys that threw him off. I'm sorry, I can't remember the reason he was tossed, but I think it was something about preaching the word of God, or maybe he was just really annoying and didn't help clean the fish. Either way, these mean, nasty men didn't want him around, so tossed he was. Now drenched and hurt and upset and confused, Jonah, being the godly man he was, looked to the heavens while treading water and choking and screamed something similar to what every other person in the Bible screams when in trouble. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? And next thing you know, a whale comes and swallows him up. No kidding. A whale swims to Jonah and swallows him up whole. Only Jonah's safe inside. The big fish swims to shore, and whammy, Jonah is spit out, whole and intact, on the beach where he is safe and sound. The end. After deciding which story we were going to do, the next step was casting the roles. Abby and Nathan decided that I should be Jonah because I was the smallest and the easiest to throw overboard. They would be the mean and nasty fisherman dudes, so we set out to make a boat. We carved boxes into the shape of a ship and drew fish along the sides in waves, depicting the very choppy ocean. The plan was that after I was gently tossed overboard, Abby and Nate together would be the whale. Nate the jaws and Abby the tail. Once swallowed up, I would get in the middle of both of them. We would wiggle like we were swimming to shore, and then they would jerk their bodies, and I would shoot out of what looked to be Nathan's mouth. Hello, train. See how much more train we have left here. That's 16 pages. 41 to that's 17, so we're almost done here with this section. When the time came, everyone gathered around our makeshift boat and oohed and awed over how much work we had put into our sketch. I dressed up like a boy so that everyone knew that I was not a girl and did my best to look like Jonah of the Bible times. I don't know the exact dialogue, but this is close enough. Nate: Jonah, we don't like you. Abby: yeah, Jonah, you stink. Nate: a lot. We don't want you on our boat. Abby: we never really did. We don't know how you got it here in the first place. And God sent me. Nate: God? Enough about God. Abby: yeah. We don't like God and we don't like you, Anne. But God is the way, the truth, and the life. He who believes in him shall never die. Nate: that's it. We've had it with you. Abby: yeah, you're dead. And with that, Nathan and Abby grabbed my arms and feet, respectively, and started swinging me over the edge of the homemade boat. Abby and Nate swinging me in the air. 1, 2, and no, please, no. But before they got to 3, I found my body careening over the cardboard boat and into the living room. Abby and Nathan got into character that they let go of me while in midair, and 3, I fell from about 5 feet up and landed flat on my back, smacking my head on the floor, and really truly feeling what Jonah might have felt. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? I screamed at the top of my lungs, everyone thinking that I was giving a fully committed Jonah like performance. Abby and Nathan ran around the side of the boat and immediately became the whale. I couldn't stop the show, no matter how badly I was hurt. The whale was heading toward me, and the crowd was most certainly riveted. I allowed myself to be swallowed up like we had planned. I grabbed my aching head once inside the belly and wiggled my tiny bottom like we had rehearsed. My God, I screamed, and Abby and Nathan echoed back, My God, my God. Before I knew it, Nathan was heaving, and Abby was shooing, and out I spilled. Regurgitated from the belly of the whale and out flat onto the floor. I was heaving and hurting and ready to cry. As I watched Nathan and Abby swim away from our carpeted shore, I shakily got to my knees. My God! And then to my feet. My God! And raised my hands in the air. I'm alive! I'm alive! And did a little jig. Thank you, God! Thank you! The entire Bible study got to their feet. My siblings ran to my sides and took my jiggy hands. As we were bending in our bow and I heard the cheers of my fans, my headache no longer mattered. My back pain went away. We took another bow and I thought I heard my father turn to my mother and say, A star is born. I don't know if it was because of our performance or if I had nothing whatsoever to do with it, but soon after we were all allowed to go to the theater to see our first movie. We were all so very excited. There was a movie called Star Wars that was coming out starring this guy who used to be a carpenter and a pretty lady with buns on either side of her head. We decided to make an event out of the evening. There was a newfandangled. I thought it was newfangled food we had learned about from our boardwalk excursions called pizza burgers, and Mom was going to make them for us before we went to the 7 o'clock show. Dad had the job of making his very favorite and special recipe called sugar popcorn. Sugar popcorn is made in oil and doused heavily in sugar and was one of our favorite treats. We couldn't afford the tickets, let alone the popcorn, but nothing was going to take away from the whole theater experience this night of nights. We gobbled our gooey burgers, which consisted of chopped ham meat, mozzarella cheese, and tomato sauce, and we were tumbling down the street as fast as you could say boo. We paid our money and skipped down the aisle, finding seats in the very first row. I could hardly bear all the excitement. The world on the screen was so wonderful, so fantastical. The men in white suits gave me the chills. The chick with the buns gave me the thrills. And the guy with the ship, forget it. I mean, forget it. Who the heck was that? What a dream. What a dream. I'd never seen a man like him before. His face was so handsome, his ship so fine. I wanted to be on that ship. I wanted to boot the princess off and grow buns of my own. I wanted him to look at me the way he looked at her and fly me through space. Couldn't I fly with him? Couldn't I please, one day fly with him? And yeah, she's talking about Harrison Ford, and she eventually did fly with him. Dude, is this not even over yet? How fucking far is this chapter? Oh, that's chapter. Am I in chapter 3 or 4? This is 3, so where the hell is chapter 4? Am I almost at the end of chapter 3? I don't think so. No. Not even close. Where the hell's chapter 4 start? There, 74. And I'm at page 61. So that's going to be it for now. Not reading all night. I ain't a fucking yeoman reader. That's all. Goodbye.